right now. And so kind of going back to what would I tell my younger self as well would be to never have tolerated any of that. Like my daughters now would never tolerate some of the words that I just kind of let slide off because I was just trying to survive, you know. But I think they coexist by you cannot be silent. Like people can't be silent. Like people know me for my social media presence and stuff. I do a lot of videos on, just social justice type issues. And the same people who knew me in high school who kind of got away with things see my videos now and are like, dang, like I go in, so it's just I think there has to be voices. I think you can't let subtle racism slide because subtle racism becomes overt racism. Little by little we let things slide, and I think when you have privilege, when we talk about privilege, I always talk about my privilege as an athlete, my privilege as a man. I need to use that privilege to advocate for people who have less privilege than me. And so when we talk about white privilege, even when we talk about athletic privilege or whatever, you use the privilege that you have to advocate for other people, and that's how these things coexist. That's how we have inclusion and equity and equality in that, is that everyone has to do their part in that. We know as men that, I do a lot of videos as well on sexual harassment and just kind of sexual misconduct, and a lot of times women who watch those videos will say, we need more men to do what you're doing because women can't do it alone. It's the same thing with social justice. If black people could have made all this go away on their own, it'd be gone by now because we all obviously don't want it. But we need other races to play a part in that as well. Just like we need men to be against sexism and things like that, we need white people, black people, everyone to play their role in being anti-racist as well.
Yeah, I think, Coach, pretty much. There's nothing to add other than if the American Constitution and Lady Justice was truly blind and they just really abided by it and didn't favor or bias anyone, no one would care because everybody would be getting fair and equal treatment. But because they don't, okay, and there is year after year and just example after example, you picked a decade in American history, and I can give you an example, right, of it not playing out the way that it was constitutionally written to play out. That's when the issues occur, and that's why we're having these conversations. So I'm gonna stop there because he pretty much hit it on the head. I just want to say, if the Constitution did what it was supposed to do, and Lady Justice was truly blind, we probably wouldn't have half these issues.
Very good, I agree. So what I've been hearing from a lot of you is really, and I have even mentioned about being role models, but I wanted to ask you guys, if you were to name, if each of you could take a small sample and answer this, if you were to name an African-American athlete as Athlete of the Year, who would he or she be and why?
You going first?
I know. I'm gonna start calling names.
For Black Athlete of the Year, I'd for surely pick Kyrie Irving as the Black Athlete of the Year, because even though the white people tried cutting off his water, meaning cutting his shoe deal, cutting his salary, he still persevered and is still hooping on people and still doing him. And I feel like he should be the Black Athlete of the Year. Oh, and if you didn't know who Kyrie Irving is, he got a lot of hate for sharing a link to a movie which was based on like the Black Jews and telling about the early religion of the Black Jews, and he got a lot of hate for that, as he came off as racist or other names that they called him.
For me, it probably would, as of right now, LeBron James. He's not only super successful on the court, but off the court, he helps a lot of people. He has his own foundation, and he funds to those who need it, and he understands it because he came from that background. So he helps them with their education, with their food, with their water. And so that would probably be, for me right now, LeBron James.
I'll touch on what Jabari just said. It'd be Kyrie Irving for me. And the reason why I say that is because, man, if you look at the that happened after all that dropped down, like, it is just like, yo, what? All he did was share a link. He didn't put a caption on it. He didn't say anything more about it. He put a link. He got a whole script, a list of stuff that he was to do in order to get back into the game. And I'm talking about paying fines, going to different counseling sessions, apology. I'm talking list after list. And it's crazy, because it's like all he did was share a link, because out of all Black, African Americans, Afro Americans in the United States, we are one of the only people that are still trying to find our history. Our history has been wiped, you know? So when you share a link and you're just trying to reach out to your people, I feel like that should be a thing that should be praised. Like, yeah, bro, do you, yeah. But the crazy thing is he got the backlash, but Jeff Bezos got more money. And I'll rest my case.
I'm a fan of LeBron James's, but I would say it's kind of a vague statement, but I'm a fan of all the athletes who went and stuck their neck out and spoke out. The WNBA players who, you know, wore shirts for social justice, because, you know, they have a lot more to lose, because they already have low viewership. You know, they already don't make the money that, not to say that it's easy for LeBron James to do it, but it's a lot easier when you are the best basketball player in the nation and you're making $100 million a year. So I look at the athletes in smaller sports who kind of spoke up, and I think that they're very, you know, I look up to them a little bit more. And then to kind of elaborate on what they're saying, if you look at kind of the double standard, you know, with, gosh, I'm going to forget their names, but the coach of the Raiders who had all the text messages found and everything, that were John Gruden, you know, and then the leader of the UFC guy, you know, who was in a bar and he slapped his wife around a couple of times. I mean, you heard way more about Kyrie Irving than you heard about them, you know, and there were issues with the video that he shared. I'm not saying that was perfect, but there's a double standard. And so I think that those athletes who kind of stand up, stick their neck out, speak out, I think I kind of admire that over everyone.
For Black Athlete of the Year, I would probably say LeBron James. I mean, he's looked to by our community as a leader, even like through all the money. He's a great guy. Even when when Kyrie was going through his thing, LeBron spoke out. LeBron speaks out on everything because he knows the backlash that'll come with it, but he deals with it for us, for our community, to better ourselves, but to better us.
Yeah, I think I'm good with what everybody said. I want to add this though. The WNBA, I want to say it was a year or 2 years ago, protested by not playing games. Okay, I want you to understand why this is important. You get paid for playing. They opted to not play. So just imagine if the NBA or the NFL said, we're not playing this Sunday, or we're not playing this week in the league, in the NBA, because we are not happy with these social issues that are not being addressed, clearly not being addressed. Imagine how much money would be lost if they did that, between television rights and all of this. And so for the WNBA, for them to actually, and this is white, black, red, or blue, everybody did it. They got all in one accord and literally did not play games. That is sacrifice at the most highest level, right? And so I wish that the NBA or NFL would do something like that. We got close with Kaepernick and kneeling, but that created a different storm, you know. But to not play the game, to say we're not playing tonight, that's a whole nother. Do you know how many people was mad they got home ready to turn on that TV to watch a game? Imagine on Sunday, everybody said we're not playing. That's 16 NFL games. People watch the games literally from 10 o'clock in the morning until the last game go off at about 8 o'clock at night, all day. That's a lot of marketing revenue and money that would have been missed. Now you're going to get somebody's attention. Now they got to hear you, okay? I've always said, I ain't in the protest, I'm in the boycotting. Why? Because when you hit them in their pocket, that's the only time they listen. If you ain't in their pocket, they're not listening. They don't care, because it'll go away, okay? But I just wanted to say that.
I am so glad that you said that, because we all have a role to play. It doesn't matter if you're playing sports, really. If you're breathing, you have something to contribute. You have something that you offer. What you have to do is have the courage enough to do it. If you want some encouragement, if you want some insight, if you want people to support you, speak up. There are other people who will rally with you, who will join you. But if you keep silence, if you never speak out, if you don't take a stand for what you believe in, then you have no right to make a complaint. You don't have a right to be talking about how it should be done, what shouldn't have been done, because you didn't even do your part. At least if it was done wrong, they had the courage to do it. So I want to end with everyone realizing your talent and skill to stand up. Realize that you don't have to be famous. You don't have to make a whole lot of money. And you don't have to be part of some big, giant institution in order to stand up for what's right. Do you? Believe in you. Stand up for what is right. And so right now, I want to ask a question. I want to ask the audience if you have any questions for any of our panel athletes. First of all, I want to give them a hand for coming out this evening and talking with us. And then the coaches, too, sharing your insight. I appreciate all of y'all for coming out. Right now, we're going to open it up for questions.
Basketball mom voice.
Okay.
So my question is actually for the coaches. My son has played travel ball for quite a while. I had an encounter with one of his coaches a few years ago that indicated to me that for a lot of his team members, which are predominantly black, that athletics is the only way out, the only opportunity. And I felt I needed to push back on that, given that I work in higher education, especially at community college. I feel like it's not the only way out. So what would you guys, as coaches, say to coaches today for youth sports that say, for our black athletes, being an athlete is the only way out?
Thank you for the question. You know, I think growing up in New Orleans, Louisiana, for me that was the I wouldn't say the reality, but kind of it was. Had I not gone to college on a scholarship, there's probably a good chance that I wouldn't have gone. I think really what you could do for those people, though, is to get them in touch with the resources. I think a lot of times families don't know that there are resources. Like, I'm still educating people on the fact that junior college is free, you know, because they just don't know. I think it has a lot to do with there wasn't like taxes that were raised when it happened. It kind of was just legislation that went through. And so because there wasn't, you know, a big, you know, hoopla about it, people didn't know. So I think a lot of times for black kids who are growing up with less, that seems to be the reality for them. But I think there are resources to make that less of a reality. But that is something that I think, and maybe Coach Marvin can elaborate on this, but I feel like that's something that has been historically true, but I think it's becoming less. I mean, I'm so impressed, honestly, with the black athletes on this panel, as well as the athletes that I've been coaching for the last few years here. I just think that the tide is changing a lot, but I don't think that everyone is tapped into the resources that makes it a reality for you to get to college or to make it out of the hood or out of a less of a situation without having to be an athlete. But you know, when people try to almost criticize the fact that people are athletes, you know, I'm in a lot of black fathers groups, and they'll say, don't let them put you in this hole of being an athlete. You can be, you know, whatever. And I say, you know what, for some of us, you know, our athletics is what paid for us to become a professor. It's what paid for us to become a lawyer. So there's nothing wrong with being a student athlete. There's nothing to look down on that at all, because for some people that's the reality. But again, I think that's something that's just been historically true, but maybe less true now.
Yeah, so, hello? Here we go. So, yeah, what I would add to that is you should push back because every morning when I'm driving my kids to school, we have some affirmations that we speak. And I ask questions, they must answer the question. The first question I ask is, what's the strongest muscle in your body? Well, the answer is your brain, okay? So that has nothing to do with athletic ability, nothing to do with anything other than if you use this thing, and you use it how you should, it can take you anywhere you want to go. You don't got to be athletic at all. So the resources issue is a thing. A lot of people don't know about the resources. There is more funding in academic scholarships than there is in athletic scholarships. Way more. You just got to sit down and fill out the apps and understand where to go and what to do, right? So I think what we're looking at is a cultural issue, and I'm not saying a black culture. I'm just saying a culture where, I mean, you can name the sport, people really think they're going to make it all the way to the top. And so there's a cultural thing tied to athletics that this is the only way. When, as Alonzo said earlier, in my class, I tell them this is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. It's just a tool. The sport is a tool that can get you somewhere. Look, my playing career was very short, okay? But I pay my mortgage every day, every month I should say, based off that education that I got. My football, it don't even matter. It don't even matter that I dropped the interception to win the game. Don't matter. I pay my mortgage. My kids eat every day, ain't missed a meal yet, based off my education. That's the culture that has to shift and change. And people just got to understand that it's cool to play the sport. It's a tool. It's a tool, nothing more, nothing less. It got me to my 4th year, got paid for it. And then I flipped it and got my master's paid for it because I was GAing. So that took for six years of school. It probably would have cost me north of $100,000, right? So essentially, it's a tool. And if we can teach them that this is a tool to get you elsewhere, or teach the coaches that there's a ton of resources, and teach the kids that it's about that muscle in your brain. This is the only muscle, the 6 inches between the ears that matter. Everything else, I mean, what else is there, right? And so to me, I would push back on that, and I would push back on that heavy, and I would use those examples, right? Because that's what's really, it's about changing that culture. It's cool to be an athlete. This is a tool, though, because our windows are so short, and that's what I would tell myself. That first question, what would I tell her? The second one, would you tell yourself as an athlete, as a younger athlete, that my playing career, that window is very, very short. You cannot waste time as a student, and you cannot waste time as an athlete, and you got to take care of your body. LeBron James just he just scored the most points in NBA history. He played, 19 to 20 years now, straight in the league, let alone all his AAU and high school basketball. That man took care of his body to be able to do that. So I would tell myself, make sure that my grades is right, make sure I take care of my body. Anything that would take me, what I call a vice, that takes me away from what I need to be doing, get away from that immediately. Whether that be nutrition, whether that be people, whatever it is. And so that would be what I was saying. So it's a cultural shift that must happen, to answer that question.
I want to ask you, and I just want to, are you saying that it was said to you by the parents of these athletes?
No, the coach.
The coach who, is he African American or? Okay, so I would say also, because I agree there should be pushback. I just think there has to be, hopefully there's a good relationship between the two of you where you guys, that communication can be, because one thing that I've realized with the society that we're in right now, some people believe that white people should do more of the work instead of, asking black people to educate them on things. And there's just, I think there's two different types of people. Like, I am an open book, and I feel like if someone wants me to help educate them, I want to do that for them. But I know that there might be times where you push back against someone who doesn't accept that pushback from you like they might accept that pushback from me. So I just want to make sure that the communication lines are well open between you and that person before. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And you can use us as resources. We are resources that might be able to reach out to these type of coaches and just open their mind up. And I mean, I've been saying this for years because I've been coaching football for 20 years. The coaching pool has gotten worse every year of my life since I've been coaching, especially at the high school level. Why? Because they keep opening new high schools, they dilute the programs, and you get all these coaches that's coming in that are not qualified. The coaches need to be coached too. But, what's funny is, it's a funny story. Last year, my son played soccer. I've never coached soccer a day in my life. We paid $400 for him to play soccer. They didn't have a coach. They was going to cut the team. well, I'm not going to let my son not play, so I coach. Now, I don't, it's wrong to every other parent who paid $400 to have somebody who ain't never coached soccer coach their kids. My whole point is, I need to be coached. These coaches need coaching as well, especially at the lower levels.
And then I just want to chime in on that too. We need to coach each other. A lot of times we do not want to help each other. We don't want to talk. And a lot of it is cultural. But, COVID, right? But on the serious note though, I mean, COVID is a very real thing though, but on the seriousness though, we still can call each other up. Have a Zoom meeting. How come we can't have a Zoom meeting and just rap to each other? Just have a good conversation. Ask me questions. I would love to talk to you about it, about whatever. I'm not embarrassed about it. Everybody knows me, know I'm very confident. But I also realize not everybody's like that. Some people are afraid to hear the truth. Some people are sensitive to the truth. And some people straight up just don't want to know the truth. All of that exists, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. And so with that said, I really appreciate the honesty that was shared in this room and this platform. I want to again thank you athletes, thank you coaches for giving us true insight and just keeping it real with all of us. Oh, another question.
Yes, I have one question.
Should student athletes be paid? I almost said played. Paid.
I would say absolutely. When I was in college, I ran track in college. I was on scholarship, and that scholarship was great. But track wasn't a revenue sport like the other sports. When I look at, and you can say yes, they were getting an education. I understand that, and that education is valuable. I agree. But there's a story about Chris Webber, right? He goes to a basketball game. He sees many kids walking out when he played at Michigan wearing his jersey. For someone who comes from, where he was using his scholarship money to help his family out at home, it would have been nice for him to get a piece of the money that was going to. These college coaches make millions upon millions of dollars. These colleges have endowments of billions of dollars all the time. To give these athletes a piece of that, obviously look at it now, right? They have NILs now. Athletes are being paid. You haven't seen, the quality of the game, suffer at all. You haven't seen that. We thought we were going to see so much scandal because of it. Now it's been a year, and all you see is kids being able to help their families out.
Yeah, there's really not much to add. I just think that it should be paid because all of the money that these institutions have been making for years off of these student athletes, the TV deals, all of that stuff. For all those years that those student athletes didn't get paid, video games, like all kind of things, and not give these kids a dime, right? And so, yeah, you should get paid for your likeness and your ability. Why would, at any level? I don't care if you're 12. If they get good, pay them, right? So I agree 100%.
So I agree wholeheartedly because if you look at that picture that's at the end of that wall, the two brothers standing in that picture, who I went to school with, and I remember there were many days, and everybody knows John Carlos and Tommy Smith, those names, but I remember when we would all get together and cook at people's houses so folks could eat. And because they didn't get paid, in fact they got ostracized after the 1968 Olympics. And to some, to this day, probably in the last 10 or 15 years, that they have been able to make something again of their lives, except for Tommy, because Tommy went on, got his doctorate, and was track coach at San Juan City College. But when you look at some of these athletes that come back, like my day, they didn't have it. It was tough. And if they had been able to get a little money, life could have been different.
Well, since Professor Metcalf, in case everyone couldn't hear, she's in agreement with student athletes being paid because it was a struggle. And she was saying some examples about how she knew the young men is on this picture on the wall here, where they would hang out, get together, and cook so that they can have something to eat. And that's what we have to do, is just not be selfish and think about ways of how we can support one another. If it's a meal, or if it's tutoring, or whatever it might be, that's what we do. Because it's the right thing to do. Any other questions? One question, go ahead.
I was like, do I have to wait for the microphone?
No.
Because I know you're. I was wondering specifically for the students. I know there's a lot of hardships that come with being a Black athlete. So what's something that motivates you to still do that sport? Like, is there something specific for you that you think about every day, or like a routine? I don't know. Just anything.
I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything specific, but everybody in life has a struggle, has trials and tribulations that they go through, and obviously now that we're at a JUCO and being able to, work hard and showcase our skills onto the field, onto the track, it feels good. And like having people actually watch us do what we love doing, it feels good inside. It kind of boosts that motivation and that dedication to the sport that we love. A lot of athletes up here, like in high school, they were probably football, basketball, track, all of that. But now down to one sport, they can really hone in all that energy that they used to spread across many other sports into one sport. So now they're going to be devious this year. So now you're seeing them at their peak, right? So I feel like when it comes to, like I said, that drive, like everyone has it. Even if you're not an athlete, you have it. Whether you have, parents that went on to 4 years, you're trying to reach for that upper level. Like nobody wants to dig a hole and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna just stay here. You feel me? I'm good, I'm chilling. Nah. If you in a hole, you're gonna try to climb out of that. And if you ain't got a ladder, you're gonna use your hands and your feet and you're gonna claw through. So that's really what it is.
To add on to that, I just want to say, like, motivation. I find motivation in the people around me. Like my parents, they do everything for me. They do the best they can for me. But I know how it feels to be without football, and it's not the same. It don't feel the same. So just coming back and having that feeling of feeling great, feeling amazing, is no other feeling like it.
For me, it's my family. Not a lot of people know this, but I grew up in a house, 4-bedroom house with 16 people in it. We struggled a lot. I lived in a hotel for months before going to school. It wasn't easy. I literally everybody knows a hotel, 2 bedrooms with 7 people in it. With those 2 bedrooms with my siblings. And after that, it made me realize that this is what I love, and I know I have the talent to do it. And not only that, but I'm going to use this to get my education so I can keep pushing so they don't have to be in that situation ever again. So for me, that's why I do it.
For me personally, it's just beating the odds. Like, as a Black man, I'm behind. So I feel like I have to work 2 times harder than anybody else. And me growing up, I didn't really have a lot of role models for real. So like people like Coach Jackson and Coach right here is just, I look up to them because they give me advice, they point me in the right direction so I can beat these odds and provide for my family, be somebody that my younger cousins or my younger sister looks up to.
My reasoning is to inspire the younger people that come behind me, because when I was younger, say like 6th grade, my older cousin, he played football at the high school I went to, and my whole life I just looked up to him and wanted to be just like him. And then another reason is for my family. I want to use my abilities to pay for my education, because I didn't know exactly how much college was until like the past 2 years. When my brothers, they just left the college, and my mom was calculating how much she got to pay each month for tuition or help pay for my brother. And I was seeing all those prices and how much it really was, and I was all like, I don't want you paying that much for me. I want to use my abilities to pay for my education.
Are there other questions? All right, let's get everybody a hand.